Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Hello, everyone. John Ray with you back on North Fulton Business Radio, and we are broadcasting as usual from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And folks, if you are tired of getting slammed by your mega bank, and if you're at one of those banks, and actually maybe a small bank that's treating you impersonally and treating you like a number, that's not the way it happens at Renaissance. At least that's what I hear from the clients I refer to Renaissance. They tell me that Renaissance handles their services in a personal way, but they're big enough to handle pretty much any need they can throw at them. So they're at that magic combination of banking, and that's pretty cool. So if you want to know more, go to renaissancebank.com, find one of their local offices around the Southeast, and give them a call. I think you'll be glad you did. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Pamela DeRitis. Pamela is with Connect and Captivate. Pamela, welcome.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me on the show.
Great to have you here. Let's talk about you and your work at Connect and Captivate, which I've already told you. I love that name, so let's talk about it.
Thank you. And thank you for validating the name, because I am the worst at naming things.
I think you did great.
Thank you very much.
I think once our listeners hear this show, they'll agree with me. But go ahead.
It took me a month to name my cat. She went for a month without a name. So,
what's your cat's name? Tina. Okay.
Tina, yes.
There you go.
Yep. She finally got her name, but it took me a while.
Okay.
So Connect and Captivate is all about teaching my clients to connect with their audience and captivate their audience, hence the name. I do corporate communications, and there's two foundations of what I do. There is the external comms, which is speaking coaching, engagement with the audience, and on-camera coaching. That all comes from my acting background. So I have an extensive acting background. I've done a lot of theater. I've done a lot of improv. I have done some film and TV, probably nothing you would have heard of, but I've done a lot of work, and especially the live venues. And so what I teach is based heavily on what I've learned as an actor. So the other foundation is internal communications. If an employee is struggling with communications, if they feel like they can't or feel shy about voicing their opinions, voicing their ideas, I'll work with that person to help them feel more comfortable and communicate more successfully.
I want to get into the details of that shortly, but let's talk about you and your journey.
Sure.
And you said you have been an actor. Are you still active there? Or?
Occasionally I will audition.
Okay.
I'm not so much active anymore because I'm growing my business.
Yeah,
and that is my focus.
Got it.
And everything else I do in life really supports that.
Okay. Yep. So that gave you a passion for helping others.
Absolutely.
In this whole process of connecting and captivating.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So just talk about that journey and how what you learned in that whole part of your career has informed your practice today.
Great. I started acting class 2010, I think. I've been in Atlanta since 2008. And as many productions were being filmed here, still are. But at the time I was captivated, to use that word again, captivated by the film industry here. And I started doing background work and going out for auditions, but I didn't really have any experience. I decided to get into acting class for real, to actually learn how to be an actor. So the impetus to get into acting class was, I want to be a great actor for when I am cast in roles. What I didn't expect an outcome was it actually broke down a lot of emotional walls that I had built up. I was really blocked for a number of reasons. We don't have to go into that now, but I had built up some high walls around myself, probably to an unhealthy extent. And I had a choice when I joined acting class. I could either do the work or I could be kicked out of class. And there was no discussion about it. And I'm not the type of person who I join something and then just let myself be kicked out. That was not an option. So I did the work, and the work led to some big emotional breakthroughs for me. And after that turning point, I always said to myself, the business world could use a lot of this. The business world is very buttoned up, very, I'll say blocked off. Maybe that's not exactly accurate, but there's a certain level of interaction that is allowed in the business world. And I think I'm on a mission to push that boundary a little, not into inappropriate areas, but to take what I've learned and the breakthrough that I had as an actor and give that gift to business people.
This is quite interesting because I think you're right. I think the way we're taught to do business, maybe is the way to say it, is to emotionally wall off certain aspects of our lives, right?
Yeah.
I think that's changed a little bit, but in some cases it's changed like to the entire other extreme, where there's maybe oversharing.
Yeah, TMI.
TMI, and it gets to a point where it obscures what you're there for, which is the business message.
Correct.
Say more about that.
You're absolutely right, and I cringe when I see the TMI. I am not an advocate of that, and I do believe that some things should remain private in a business setting. There's also the first kind of extreme where you're so buttoned up and feel so awkward around people that you can't connect with your audience. I do want to push that boundary. I do not think that we should go so far as to engage in a lot of the TMI that I see online. I don't do that. Hopefully I don't do that. And I don't recommend it. There are rules in polite society for a reason, right? Those are there for a good reason, and we shouldn't just be tearing down those rules just to tear them down. But I do believe that we should look at those rules and say, is this really serving us? If I feel blocked off from my audience as a business person who has a message, is retaining my buttoned up business persona really serving me? Or can I open that up a little bit? Not to go so far as to be awkward and inappropriate, but can I open myself to my audience so that at least they see more of my humanity?
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see happen.
Makes perfect sense. So acting and improv has got to be a major piece of what you bring to clients, the foundations of that. Let's talk a little bit about that and the key elements of acting and improv that are part of your coaching.
Improv in particular, I've found a very effective tool to help break people out of whatever mold they're in. So an example is a doctor that I worked with. This was a client from a couple of years ago. You can imagine the doctor is very clinical, again, very buttoned down. He was creating a series of videos about his practice. And he wanted to be, he told me it's funny, very endearing. He wanted to be more like a James Bond figure to his clients. Now, he doesn't have a lot of James Bond qualities, but what we did was I brought him through a series of improv exercises to find those qualities in him that he truly has that are like James Bond. Bravery. I know what I'm talking about. I am your answer to your problem. Things like that we all have inside of us. So the more we dug, the more we discovered things about him. In spite of being a very clinical doctor who knows what he's talking about, medical jargon, we found the James Bond in him. And we brought that out. And I just loved working with him because he was so open to it, and we had fun, but he got a result too. So improv is very effective for that. Acting is it's a different focus. But what I help people do, I help people think like an actor. So what are my emotional stakes in my message? I can deliver a message very clinically, very monotone because I don't have a lot of personal stakes in it, or I'm sitting here talking to you about what I do and I love what I do, right? I have personal stakes in that. So I help people find what their core is. What am I passionate about in my job, even if it's something like insurance? May I expand on that example?
Please,
I'm rambling on a little bit.
No, bring it on. Yeah.
So let's take a dry field like insurance. It's more than just, if you are invested in your field, I'll say that has to be the prerequisite. If you're there just for the money, this may not work for you. But if you're in insurance to help families, and say I know nothing about insurance, so I'll just, hypothetically speaking, you sell a family a home insurance policy, the next year their house burns down, right? You have literally helped to save that family financially. So that's what I mean when let's go beyond what the surface of what you do into how are you affecting people's lives? Because that's going to drive your message. If I'm that insurance person and I want to create a commercial, I have to tap into that core. I'm helping people with their lives. I'm saving people financially. That should drive your marketing message. That should drive when you speak in public. Not just, I've got the lower prices and I'm better at customer service. Everybody's going to say that. But the person who is personally invested in saving a family financially, they're going to win every time.
I love that for a lot of reasons. That's intangible value.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And intangible value gives you premium pricing, but that's a whole nother bad. I won't get off into that. I think there's some obvious answers to this question, given what you've just said. There's a lot of communications training companies out there. What makes you different?
My reliance on a lot of the principles I just talked about. So I know I've looked up my competition like any entrepreneur will do. And I've found a couple businesses out there that do something like what I do, but I am consistently engaged with my clients to go beyond, like I was just saying about the insurance example, go beyond what you do. Let's find your humanity. Let's find what allows you to connect to your audience. Think like an actor. I've got to have high personal stakes in what I do. I have to craft my message so that it's the most effective for people to hear. And I have to open my heart to my audience. Those are things that an actor does.
And if I can step in here, because you said what you didn't say, I think is the most key.
Oh, okay.
But because I think a lot of people hear the word, I need to be an actor, and think I need to be someone other than myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're saying you have to be yourself, right? You just have to consider how you're delivering the message and what message you're delivering. That's what I hear you saying. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'm glad you bring that up, because whenever I mention my acting background, or that I do acting even now sometimes, a number of people have asked me, isn't that just pretending to be somebody else? And they truly believe that. And on the surface, sure, I'm not playing Pamela DeRitis. I'm going to play some other Rachel the lawyer or whatever it is. So on the surface, yes, you are taking on the persona of someone else, but how do you make that persona, that character, come alive? How do you make them believable to an audience? That's where the authenticity comes in.
Yeah.
Rachel the lawyer is going to be played differently by me versus some other actress. What I bring to the table is all of the truth I have inside me. So the type of acting that I've learned, it's called Meisner technique. I teach a version of that to my business clients. It's not about pretending to be somebody else. It's about finding the pieces of you, going back to even the doctor, finding the pieces of you that relate to that character. I never say I'm going to pretend to be this character. When I have a gig, an acting gig, and I'm cast in something, my approach is, how can I use my entire instrument, my physical body, my heart, my mind, my soul? What do I have that I can bring to this character? And that's exactly what business people should be doing too, in my opinion.
Makes perfect sense. Pamela DeRitis is with us, folks. She is with Connect and Captivate, her own firm. So Pamela, let's talk about the challenges that you see that clients have that are doing live speaking engagements, keynote addresses, video presentations. Challenges is a nice way to say mistakes, right? That's the way I'm thinking about my mistakes. So help me out.
I wouldn't call them mistakes because we all start somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
You should see, in fact, I have an online course that I offer. I'll do a brief plug. I have an online course. It's foundational on-camera skills. And in that course, I include video footage of me when I started doing an interview show. I did this years ago. I interviewed people in the entertainment industry in Atlanta. I put up a clip of my very first show, and then 4 years later, an episode I did 4 years later, and it's night and day. Like,
oh, wow.
The first show was just me pretending that I was a host, because that's what I thought I had to do. I was very boring, dry. I was excited to be there, but it was terrible. 4 years later, the episode that I put up against that, I was excited to have my guest on, and he had been on some big TV shows, and it just, and again, night and day difference. Never say it's a mistake. It's just, where are you at in your knowledge? Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm here for, is to help people learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but you asked me, what are some mistakes that people make? I'll say, what are the challenges? The biggest one I see is people try to, they're very awkward on camera. So they think that they have to present a certain way, and they just become a totally different person on camera or when they're delivering a speech than what you would see if you were talking to them one-on-one. They just turn into somebody else. And you can tell there's something not authentic about that. I always want to bring them back to, you are enough. Let's deliver in the way that you uniquely can, rather than the robot that you think you need to be.
Yeah, and that gets back to this business about acting, right? Mm-hmm. They're acting a certain way that they don't really need to.
That's
They're
right.
thinking about this the wrong way.
That's right.
That makes a lot of sense. So one of the aspects that you talk about, I think, a lot is storytelling, right? Let's bring that in, how that helps our authenticity and our ability to communicate and captivate.
So that's a big question. The way I apply storytelling principles, in addition to everything I've just said, I will often, with clients who have a script, let's say, they want to do a video series and they know what they want to say. So they'll bring me either an outline of a script or an actual written out script. I'll work with them to retool that I call it like a mini 3-act play. We've got your opening and we've got the middle where all the action should be, and then your conclusion, even if it's a 1-minute video. I've done this with auditions where I've had very short auditions, but we break it down into opening, action, closing, kind of conventional storytelling setup, but it works for a reason. Your opening needs to be very strong. You need to lure your audience in, especially if you have more time, because you want to make sure that they are engaged from the beginning and they stay with you through a 10-minute video versus a 1-minute video where you actually have a little bit more leeway, because I can see it's just 1 minute. All right, I'll watch the whole thing, even though the opening maybe wasn't great, right? So the longer the video, the higher, in my opinion, again, the higher the standard you have to adhere to keep your audience with you. And I'll work with them on the middle messaging. Maybe we should move these sentences over here. Let's say it a different way. What words are the most important? We really get into the nitty-gritty to make sure that they're maximizing their time. And then conclusion. So storytelling principles, you've got to have the emotional engagement that I spoke of. You have to have the personal stakes, but there is a structure to the delivery as well.
Got it. I want to take a little sidebar here for a minute and just ask you about the whole concept of connect and captivate.
Okay.
Because connection and captivation, I would think a lot of people, and maybe I'm just the only one, but isn't that the same thing? But you're putting those out in kind of two different concepts, aren't you?
Yeah.
And so there's a reason for that, and that's what I'm getting to. What's the reason for that?
Interesting. I've not been asked this before. This is a great question. In order to captivate your audience, you have to connect with them first. So that connection comes before your audience can be captivated, let's say. If you are in your head, a lot of people get in their head. I used to do the same thing. I still do sometimes. I still have this challenge. Like I get up in my head. Am I going to say something wrong? Am I going to, whatever it is? And they shut down. They're not connecting with their audience. Then there's no hope of your audience being captivated by you. Mm. But if you are open, if your heart is open, if you put in action the principles that I teach to connect with your audience, then they'll really listen to what you have to say. They do come on the heels of each other. You're right.
Yeah,
They're very closely correlated.
Right.
But I would argue, and other people may disagree, but I would argue that you're not going to be captivating if you can't forge a great connection first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a natural progression, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what you call light bulb moments that clients have had.
Yeah. I had one recently, a client who works for a big software firm. We did a 8-session program. That's my foundational program. So he signed up for that, and we did 2 months together once a week. And I would say somewhere maybe midway through, I was taking him through some improv and some acting exercises tailored to really what he needed. And I said to him, we've got to kind of alter your thinking about this. You're not just delivering a verbal message. People communicate actually visually, I would argue. I can say words to you. I'm speaking to you verbally. I'm speaking to your audience with my voice. But hopefully, at least at key points in this interview, they're actually conjuring up images in their head of what I'm talking about. For example, the doctor that I worked with, and I did an improv exercise with him. If your audience is into improv, if they've ever done an improv exercise, they have an image in their brain of what that means to them. And so this is what I told my client. I said, you are planting images in your audience's mind. So let's make sure you're crafting the right image. You're not just saying words, and you're not just connected with them. You're actually giving them an image. And that's how they understand you, for better or for worse. And that one piece of advice alone, or kind of wisdom, not that I'm always wise, but sometimes I am.
If you weren't wise, we wouldn't have you here. Well, thanks for bringing your wisdom. Yeah.
But that was a big light bulb moment for him. And he looked at me and he's like, that puts everything in a new perspective. I get what you're talking about. And it was just different from then on in because he was thinking about it differently.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about the big 800-pound gorilla in everyone's room. Mm-hmm. Hey, how does that affect your practice and what you teach clients?
I'm starting to look at incorporating AI into my practice. I'm not actively doing it right now. I'm in the stage where I'm researching what would be the best addition. AI, again, conjures up all kinds of images in people's brains, probably contradictory ones even. Images of possibility and opportunity, images of we're going to take over the world and we're all going to be killed by robots. It's like there are so many connotations with AI. It's coming. It's here, actually. And I would be foolish not to take advantage of it as a business person. How it impacts speaking, I'm starting to research that more and more. And there are programs out there that could do something like what I do, at least in the feedback part. Mm-hmm. The teaching part, not so much. Not yet, anyway. Still need me for that. But you can, for instance, go on some of these programs, feed it a video, and it'll give you a breakdown of your cadence, your delivery. Did you say a lot? Mm-hmm. It'll give you a lot of that real-time feedback, which is great. So I can actually make that part of my offering so that my clients still have the human being and they still have all of my knowledge that I've gained over decades of acting and teaching people. But then they'll also have the AI input where it breaks it down into kind of more actionable chunks. Mm-hmm. There are some really daunting and interesting and compelling AI programs out there that can, for example, create a digital clone of you. John, you could do these interviews. Your clone could be doing your interviews and you could be on the beach sipping a martini.
Well, there we go.
Okay. That's coming out. That's coming, if not already here. So I look at AI as another tool that we humans can use to be more effective, more efficient, increase our skill set. But I'm trying not to look at it as, oh my God, it's going to put me out of business. If I just do that, then I'm done. If not today, then next year. But if I take advantage of what it has to offer my clients and me as a business person, then that puts me head and shoulders above other places.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Pamela DeRitis is with us, folks. Connect and Captivate is her firm. Pamela, how do I know, other than that I'm scared half to death to do this keynote I've been hired to do? That's the obvious answer to this question I'm about to ask, but how do I know I need to hire you? What's happening in my world that makes me think I need to pick up the phone and call Pamela?
If you do have a speaking engagement coming up, if you have a video marketing campaign coming up, I've worked with global companies. I've worked with single person solopreneurs. They all have one thing in common, and that is that they've got this event coming up. How do they know they need to contact me? Maybe they've been practicing it, or maybe they've done these engagements in the past and not been satisfied with their outcome.
Right.
Maybe they just want to learn storytelling principles. John, maybe you're the kind of guy you've got this keynote coming up, and you are the kind of guy who I want to make it the best it can possibly be. Even if I did great in the past, there's still more to learn. You know, you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know. Just like if you have a cold, you feel it. You've got some symptoms. Same way with speaking and being on camera.
And that sounds like the answer you just gave, the answer to my next question, which is the clients that are ideal fits for you. Sounds like they've got something impending.
Yes.
Whether it's video presentation, video series, speaking engagement, where they need to be better at their game than they've been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say 90% ballpark of my clients call me because they have an event coming up. The 10% that don't are thinking about doing something like that. Maybe they don't. That 10% maybe doesn't have a video campaign that they're planning, but they know that adding video to their business or even doing video for the company that they work for is going to be a game changer for them career-wise. My latest client, that was what his situation was. He hired me not because he had something planned, but he kept thinking, I know that I can do video. I've got a lot of knowledge in my head that will help my company. We do these retreats or seminars, like annual conferences. Why aren't we doing more video around those? So he actually took it upon himself to call me, hire me, and now he is creating video for his company. Whereas he's an engineer, he's a program manager, he's an engineer, but he's got the gumption and the confidence to create video content for his company now.
Wow, that's fantastic. You've already mentioned several of these examples, the one you just talked about being one of them. I think it would be great if you could share a client success story or two that helps illustrate the great work you do for clients.
Yeah. One of my favorite I love all my clients, actually. It's hard to say which is favorite or not favorite, but one of the ones that really stands out in my head is a young lady. She lives in California. Her name is Lauren Fields. Hi, Lauren. I've tagged her on LinkedIn many times, so I know she'll be fine being plugged on this show.
Yeah, shout out to Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren has a company called Field Swell, and the name of the company implies what she does. It's all around wellness, mental and physical wellness, life direction, life coaching. And Lauren was actually giving a TEDx talk last year around a horse accident that she had when she was young. And the doctor said she was going to be paralyzed. She's walking today. She's running a business. She's doing TEDx talks. Obviously, she didn't end up being paralyzed, but she gave a TEDx talk about that whole experience. She brought me in late in the game because we didn't actually get connected up until several weeks before she was going to do her talk. So we had to cram in a lot of content into a few weeks. She, again, was just so open, and she's in California, so we did it on Zoom. So we've got a lot of challenges in our engagement and shaping it the way I felt would be best for her. but she was super open to it. She did everything I asked her to do. She did the homework that I gave her. She would come back with new thoughts every week. And again, she had some of those light bulb moments that we talked about. You're giving your audience an image of you on this horse and an image of you in the hospital bed. And what does that mean? We've got to really bring out the meaning of these moments so that your audience identifies with you rather than just describing it. And she just did beautifully. She on the day of her recording, she went, I forgot what the venue was, but when she went to the venue to give her talk and they recorded it, she felt like she was much more prepared. And she said, I took her talk from a talk to a TEDx talk. Mm. And it was very powerful for me. And I still get a little emotional about it because she's got this powerful presence. Just looking at her and seeing everything she's done, everything she's overcome. And to be a part of her telling that story was very meaningful for me. And she did a great job.
That's wonderful. Yep. Way to go, Lauren.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Pamela, this has been fantastic. And I can't imagine there aren't some folks that, upon hearing this interview, want to be in touch. So let's tell them how they can contact you.
Please feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. John, as you can go to Pamela DeRitis on LinkedIn. I think it's like linkedin.com/in/PDeRitis, my first initial last name. You can go to connectandcaptivate.com. Or if you would like to email me, my email is pamela@connectandcaptivate.com.
Pamela DeRitis with Connect and Captivate. Pamela, thanks again for coming on. I'm delighted we could shine a light on the great work you're doing.
Thank you so much, John. I've enjoyed being your guest today.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, folks, just a couple of quick things before we let you go for today. We mentioned Renaissance Bank and how they serve their clients. Renaissance is out in the community as well, actively, and they're involved in something right now that you need to know about if you care about breast cancer and the fight against breast cancer. And a lot of folks have been touched in some way or another by this terrible disease. Renaissance Bank supports the Georgia Alliance for Breast Cancer, and the Georgia Alliance for Breast Cancer is operating the Georgia 2-day walk. Covers 30 miles over 2 days. Instead of that 3-day thing over 60 miles, I love the 2-day over 30. And participants get to sleep in a hotel. I like that even better. So you can support the Georgia Alliance for Breast Cancer 2-day walk by going to the GAABC website. We've got a link in the show notes there. And if you don't walk, you can, of course, donate in some way, support a team. Renaissance will have several teams, I think, that are there. Be on the lookout for that. If this is a cause that is of interest to you and something you're passionate about, take a look, and I think you'll be glad you did. Also, I have a book out. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. If you're a solo or small professional services firm and you have issues around your value, your positioning, communicating your value, your business development, and of course your pricing, this book is written for you. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more and find out where to buy the book, which is essentially everywhere. And also, I just want to thank you, our listener. You are out there supporting us in so many different ways, and I am so grateful for you. We are at this is show number 802, folks, and we've only gotten this far because of you. And I didn't get everything going on this show 8.5 years ago thinking, we'll get to 802. I never had that in my mind, but you've put it on my mind because of your support. We've made it this far because of you continuing to share the show, and you like us on social media, and you send us great guests. And without that support, we couldn't do what we do. We could not be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond. For that support, I am grateful to you. Thank you. So for my guest, Pamela DeRitis, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.